All right, welcome folks. Mil-Spec Ops Monkey here. This is going to be your SITREP. It's Monday. We have survived another weekend, and let's see here. It is going to be about 11 a.m. Central Time on the official G-Shock clock, and it is 5:23:22. And so without further ado, let's hop over here to Skyglass. We'll start taking a look at what we've got going on around the world relative to air traffic. And so we've got it right now sitting over Europe. You can see still pretty active given the fact that they are quite a few hours ahead of us. We do have a little ghost ship out here that's kind of floating around. Interesting. Came out of Algeria, went to Moscow, and then is now headed down southbound. So I don't know who that is, but I do just kind of watch that kind of traffic because anytime you get some dude coming out of here, Northern Africa headed into Moscow is, it's just an interesting data point to say the least. But let's do this. Let's break out. Let's get over here to our watch list real fast. I just want to show you what's going on here in the U.S. We've got a couple E6s up. You guys familiar with those? Those are going to be your Tacomos. And, of course, a couple Q4s. Let me kind of zoom in a little bit. You can see, of course, our NAs. These boys always hanging out, watching our every move. But there's that Q. That's actually a Q9. And then we've got one off of California, too, which is another UAV unmanned drone doing a little surveillance. And then the P8s and P3s are getting jiggy today. They are up and at 'em, as always. Again, our military intel balloons up there just hanging out around the clock. It's actually kind of crazy. And then, of course, we got that's going to be Night Watch up. And so that one is out and about. And then, of course, over here in Europe, of course, we were just showing you this one that came out of Algeria, a little G4. Don't know, again, who is on that. But they went to Moscow and they hung out for a little bit, and now they are rolling back out. But of course, you can see where they departed from, which is Algeria. And then of course there's our little balloons, military intelligence balloons. And notice that one's a little further south over Italy. The others are still up over Germany. And then of course we've got our NATO bird, little E3 flying. That is supporting fighters guaranteed over Constanta, the port of Constanta. And then, of course, little R135, which is a British R135. That's a triple R 7253 out and about over the Black Sea. Now, I have not seen our Q4 drone up in terms of Forte, 11, or any of the others as of lately. Just this one here out over Southern California, which just launched, I don't know, maybe an hour ago. That thing will be up for a while. They always are. But let's get over here and take a look at our heavy lifts and just kind of show you what's going on around the world in terms of those. Give me a second to get them all selected. Always fun. Giant list. Okay, so let's look here closely at the activity going on with our heavy lifts. Again, East Coast centric. Got a lot of stuff hopping out of the DC kind of north area. Baltimore, Washington, out of Norfolk, Virginia. Those are all active and up this morning. A lot of C-17s coming back into the picture. Those are probably the baby formula infant ones that just came inbound. You can see that one coming across the drink, lands, and then takes back off. And so we'll keep an eye on those. But we get over here to Europe, and you want to talk about busy. Things are definitely a uptick from what we've been watching. As you can see all of the spaghetti chart there, it is quite active actually. And so of course you can see we've got something C-130 that landed over here in Constanta and delivering something or troops maybe, who knows. And then all the way up here into Finland, Norway, getting a lot more activity to the north side. Now keep in mind, Finland just got their gas cut off from Russia over the weekend on the 21st. And then Spain looks to be getting a little more active in the mix here too. And Israel's one we're just keeping an eye on. I don't see too much. I got a little A400 that's down there right now. And then, of course, Turkey rolling right into Russia in the region without any problem whatsoever. And but that'll just kind of give you a general synopsis. Now, if we look at big picture, you can see, again, East Coast, everything is East Coast centric. It's been that way for about 2 months, maybe a little bit more. Since about the time actually everything started popping off over in Europe, everything kind of shifted. I don't know why we don't see a lot of activity on the West Coast or even central U.S. It all seems to be East Coast related. I mean, you get over here to the West Coast, there's really not much there. Then if you look at Europe rolled up, this is air refuelers, including the heavy lifts, and you can see again a lot of support headed into that region right there along the Ukraine border. And then Europe just in general has just been very busy. And these are, remember, we're only looking at military aircraft. So again, very busy. Now there is a NATO exercise that is active right now. Could be part of the role in there, but I don't really know. But you can see kind of pretty messy little spaghetti chart there, isn't it? All right. Okay, let's get now over here to our main board and our schedule. Let's just take a quick look. I want to show you, we do have a pretty active volcanic ash alert popping right now, which is, that's the thing we got to watch for, because if any one of these, some of these are pretty big volcanoes, like Ducano is no joke. And you get Krakatoa popping off and jet streams and everything else, and it's not, I mean, it can affect the local area, but when you start taking that jet stream and pushing ash across the continents, it can impact their crops and do a lot of different things. So we keep a close eye on this, mainly for air travel. The one in Japan, again, firing off. We did have Etna, which was going here in Italy yesterday. It looks to be chilled out right now. So, but anyway, that's going to be your volcanic stuff. Over here to the TFRs real fast, just show you a couple things we got going on. This one's new. We do have a space ops, looks like right here, this TFR, space operations. I don't know why it's so long and down that general way. But of course, we always see weird kind of space ops stuff, right? You get a lot of little circles up here in the Gulf, things all the way up the coast. And so not seeing too much other than our regular stuff. We do have Memorial Day weekend coming up, a lot of air shows. This X over Alabama, and not to be concerned, that's just a storm-related Atlantic #1. I guess we are now officially in the season, and so I guess they're watching this general area. You can see the rotation there on this, but that they don't think it's going to do anything other than just be a rainmaker. So, all right, out here to the West Coast, you can see some wind advisories, and let's get up here into Alaska real fast and see what we've got going on. Now, this one, base up here, base operations, that's probably space ops, but let me just double check. No, VIP. All right, so that could actually just be an indicator that Flashbang's coming back, and he's probably going to land right there in Anchorage. And then we've got this little one here, which is hazards. That's not HARP. HARP is a little further up in here, I think. So, all right, there you have it. That's going to be our TFRs for today. Now, let's get over here to our board. Looking at Flashbang, he is in Japan, and looks like he is pretty busy there with everything today, 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., which is our time, obviously, East Coast time. But I imagine he's probably going to be bouncing back over the drink here shortly. Okay, now let's talk about this one just for a second, because I saw some news reported this weekend that Flashbang has invoked the Defense Production Act to increase U.S. infant formula. I will tell you, it looks like, oh boy, right? Oh, this guy's invoking things, and but we have to kind of keep things in perspective here. Now, the DPA, as they call it, was actually, it started in 1950, around the time of the Korean War. Okay, it was in response to the Korean War. But I will tell you, it's been used over 50 times since 1950. And the biggest one to use it, actually the one that kind of kicked things off, was actually the Kenyan back in 2011. But then in 2017, Trump used it. He used it again. That was in June of 2017. He used it in March of 2020. Used it March 18th, 23rd, and March 27th, right? All tied to different things, from General Motors stuff to critical supply chain issues, things to do with N95s, things like that. On April 2nd, he also kicked it in again. That was the N95s. April 28th, Trump kicked it in. December 8th, and then, of course, once we got flashbang in January, he kicked it in right out of the gate on vaccines, and then wildfire crisis, and then baby formula. So you can see, actually, Trump has got the lion's share of using this Defense Production Act. Now, if we really kind of step back from it for a second and think about it, what this really indicates is that our supply chain is in dire straits, right? Big picture, the fact that we've got to invoke all of this stuff is because we're not squared away. Our supply chain is in really bad shape, and they have to actually invoke these things in order to get stuff prioritized, all right? Now, the scary thing is FEMA's running all of that, all right? And so we don't want to lose sight of it, and I'm not saying it's a nothing deal. I'm just saying Trump used the daylights out of it, and we don't want to lose sight of that because it is not as bad as you think from what you're really thinking. It's really more tied to the supply chain issues, and that's as bad as you might think or don't think, all right? So, okay, let's get over here to the fun stuff. Also wanted to talk a little bit about this whole monkeypox thing. Now, I take personal offense to it, but I just want to tell you, Belgium is now beginning quarantines. This is just going to get stupid. You can already see it. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. It's just, they're going to do this stupid stuff, all right? But put it in perspective. 14 countries have them, 108 confirmed, 91 suspected, a total of 200, all right? But this gets a little more, if you start looking at some of you kind of peel the onion a little bit, this gets kind of interesting, and it is definitely wonky, to say the least. Here's why. Gateway Pundit just put out a beautiful little article here talking about monkeypox outbreak and a company globalist group called NTI predicting the likelihood. And so I just want to show you this. Here we go. Scenario design 1, May 15th, 2022. What are the odds? That's about the time all of a sudden we got the first notification coming from the media. Coincidence? Probably not. Again, this is what the prediction was, but it's just showing move 1, move 2. You can see their little scenarios. It is kind of, I always find it interesting in a not interesting kind of way what these people are up to, because it's kind of like they show you their hand before they punch you with it. So, all right, now check this out. You may remember we were tracking for the longest time the phoenix birds, right? The gray birds in and out of Africa, right? So every time we'd see those guys pop into the region, I almost thought they were maybe CDC agency versus CIA agency, right? But we would see these guys pop in and out, and then we'd see some kind of crazy stuff about, monkeypox or whatever it may be, right? Coincidence? I don't know, but I will tell you, I do find it interesting that, first of all, they're not available to track anymore based on European government rules. So that means these guys are in play over in Europe. They don't want you seeing what they're doing. That's in 163 PA. Here's in 183 PA, same thing, right? Per the request, they've got a PI on that, so you can't see it. And then, of course, 173 PA, exact same thing. Now, these are the gray birds. These are the ones, if you remember, when the president in Haiti got assassinated, two of these, 173, 163, actually popped into Haiti and then popped right back out of Haiti. So, again, agency birds. And I guess they got smart that they don't want us tracking it. Although I will tell you there is a backdoor way to do it through hex codes. And I just have not had the time to do it, but they will pop back on radar and we'll be able to track them. So even though over here under FlightAware, you can't do it. And that's because FlightAware has agreements with the FAA that they will hide that data. Okay. Get over to the other apps and maybe not so much, especially Skyglass. That's the beauty of being a tool that is crowdsourced because we all have antennas on our houses, and we can track these things, and we don't we're not bound to the FAA stuff. So very cool. Just FYI, when these things come back online, we will find them eventually, and we'll see what they've been up to. Okay. All right. Now let's get over to marine traffic. Yes, I am still here. Want to show you a couple things before we get down into Shanghai and Sri Lanka and everything else. Just look at the flow along the West Coast, all the way up here from Seattle all the way down. You're going to notice it is very light from a cargo and a oil tanker perspective. San Francisco, not too much going on. You know, you've got ships that are in port, but it is not busy by any means compared to what it used to be. And you get down here into Southern Cal, Long Beach, you can see you get offshore. There's a couple things moving, but they don't necessarily. This one looks like it's headed to Long Beach, but not all of them, right? This one here is parked. That's going to LAX. We at one point had about 40 or 50 ships sitting out here. And since then, it has really kind of phased out. Now, why is that? Let's get into the actual crux of things. Just want to show you. This is Shanghai. Notice this. Think of this kind of like a tarmac. They're parked out there. There is a flow going on now. You can see these are reds are oil tankers, greens are cargo. But what they do is they stage them and then they run them in and out. And so you can definitely see things are starting to move and break loose in and out of the Shanghai port. You can see them. These are all in there getting unloaded or loaded. Production is still not full on. They're not actually going to be back on till June 1. So you get down to south there, South China, same thing. Things are parked out there, kind of staged. Still a lot of equipment and assets not moving, folks. And so that's why our West Coast is looking very emptied out. And that's not a good sign. That means whatever inventory we have on the West Coast in our ports that has been geo-positioned within our country is going to start burning down. And we'll get into that a little bit more when we start talking about Amazon and the fact that they're about to start laying people off. I do find it interesting. But again, Long Beach, you take a look, you can see that we've got, let me just look here real fast. You can see, I mean, just stuff parked, nothing really out there. It's really nothing. I don't think. I mean, it is definitely emptying out. Let's just put it that way. I don't think there's anything out there really parked waiting to come in 10 miles offshore, right? Onesie, twosies compared to what it normally is. So, sorry, I got distracted. I had a little pop-up over here on my left corner box there from the team, so I was just making sure nothing was coming in. All right, so Black Sea, again, everything looks to be flowing like nobody's business. Get over here to Constanta. Again, a lot of stuff parked. Notice the oil tankers sitting outside of Constanta. That is kind of new, at least the quantity. You can see them staged, waiting to get in there. And then, of course, that port is packed. That's why they sit out there. Same thing with Shanghai. All right, and we'll get down here to Sri Lanka if it'll let me do it. It's not. Let me, 1 second. I think, there we go. Can't go right, you can only go left. So let's get into Sri Lanka, take a look. Now remember, they were supposed to be getting some support in this weekend. We'll show you the flow of things is still rolling. There is some stuff, kind of congestion down there on the very south end. But if you look at Colombo, which is their biggest major port, it is still pretty empty, very empty. It doesn't look good. Now, China said they were bringing in about $2 billion worth of stuff. That's one ship worth of things that they've got coming in. Actually came in on Sunday. So there's one in there that's actually giving them a little relief. But for the most part, the place is emptied out. It looks to me like they are part of a big experiment. So, all right, over to the military vessels. Now, let me back this bad dude up. Let's take a quick look. I do want to show you we've got an increased activity in the Black Sea from a military perspective. That's going to be a Soviet boat. That's the SB-36 or Russia, okay? Same thing here. We've got search and rescue stuff up here. That was 4 hours ago. But you can see we weren't really picking up too many military things last week. It looks like this week we have more stuff out there. These are ships that are basically protecting Constanta because Remember, Constanta, they're coming out of here with grain that they get up here in Ukraine as they're trying to get everything out that they can. And they come through this port pinch right here, which is Istanbul, straight on through, and so into the Med and then around to do the deliveries. So they've got ships in there doing protecting. Now, NATO exercise still ongoing. You can see a lot of boats out here, ships out here doing their thing, but a lot of round circles, which means a lot of stuff parked in the ports. Again, we're watching for that to go from dots to arrows, okay, in a nutshell. When you start to see that happen, you'll know that we are getting ready to go to war, because they are not going to leave their boats or their ships sitting at harbor in a port, especially not after Pearl Harbor, right? Just kind of common sense. War's going on. You don't want your stuff sitting parked. You want to get it out in the open water. And so we watch that. Now, this also is a lot of Russian stuff going on in that general area, because this is Russia and they kind of control this region, as well as a lot of heavy presence in the Black Sea. So, all right, off of the boats into the planes. Let's talk here before we transition over. Here is the cyber attack map for today. You can see our Star Wars map. We are basically getting peppered. Looks like Europe is actually taking a brunt of stuff right now. But it's very active, very busy. And again, this will be another indicator when you see this thing lit up like a Christmas tree, that they are getting ready to probably go hot. So we watch for that. We're watching for the ships to kind of get out of the ports. And then, of course, we're watching the flights with troops pre-positioning, ready to go. And so kind of transition over to the war foot, get away from the monkeypox nonsense. I do want to show you. This is just a write-up here talking about the $40 billion aid for Ukraine was actually signed. I just want to highlight the fact that there is no oversight on how it will be spent. What are the odds, right? Kind of goes back into this. You may remember Uranium One, same kind of thing, right? We're going to pump a bunch of money into programs or war machines or whatever it is we deem necessary. And in turn, you guys are going to float a nice, generous sum of money over to our foundations. And so that was pay to play. And these people are still out walking the streets, with the exception of onesie twosies. But you can see there's that Ukraine flag right there, front and center, private bank. Very, very active during that time. It still is very active with the corruption. And so this thing it just reeks of pay to play, right? We're going to just pump a bunch of money in there, and then those guys are going to distribute it, and our foundations are going to get very fat and healthy. All right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about Ukraine, talk about Russia, what's going on there. Russia's strategist tells TV pundit in the Ukraine war is actually a rehearsal for the NATO conflict. We knew that. This is just a warm-up. As you can tell, what they're doing is, in actuality, they're disarming us through this Ukraine thing, because we're pushing all of our weapons out and giving them everything to go fight this war. And we're leaving ourselves vulnerable, because we don't really have stuff to go back and make it or remake it for years. So not a good thing. All right. And so it's like we got our pants down. We're going to get caught with our pants down. It's a bad situation, to say the least. All right. So, again, probably all part of the plan. Now, speaking of plans and a knuckleheadedry, I just want to show you the globalist. Here's the full roster of Davos 2022 attendees. Of course, this guy, who else have we seen wearing that kind of funky Klingon looking stuff? I don't really, I think it was actually Hillary was wearing something similar to this at one point with that little brooch. You can't make that stuff up. That is really kind of weird. But anyway, let's get down here real fast. I just want to show you what is on the docket. And of course, notice that there is a special address by Zelensky. But check this out. These are the attendees from the United States. And just take a look at the names that are on here. Of course, you got John Kerry right center in the mix. He was in the mix of all the Iran stuff as well. These guys ought to be in jail, let's be honest. But, you know, there are some R's on here too. Check this out. So you get across the states. I don't know who this dude is, but he's from Texas. You get a guy here from Florida. So you can see how they are so successful in implementing their goals, because they got players in just about every stinking state in the U.S., or at least half of them. And that right there, folks, is a mix of R's and D's. And, of course, you got this one here that is, anyway. But I just want to point that out. This is, you get over that World Economic Forum, you look at their plans on the Great Reset. You got this guy right here front and center who's driving it all. He is the plan, and this is the plan, actually, right? So he's the guy driving this. And you can look at the stuff. These are their data points and what they're pushing. The bigger that diamond, the bigger their impact on what their plans are. And so notice that social instability almost front and center right there, involuntary migration. And when they call it climate action change, that's kind of code word for other stuff, right? We know that. Anytime you hear about climate or dogs, you always have to be a little bit suspect on their comms, right? Okay, over here to Ramstein, just show you what we've got happening over in Europe. We've got, looks like Atlas Air has brought in a 747 coming out of Baltimore, Washington. That is more than likely troops, but I just want to show you that. And then, of course, we got this camber flight departure. That's an unknown to where it's going, but we're going to look at that closer here in just a second. A couple spar flights and that reach flight there, but somewhat active. It looks like they've got some heavy movers, but you will notice the flight coming out of there. We're going to get over to that in just a second. Come back to the camber flight. This is Biggs Army Airfield, very quiet, not too much going on. Now, if we get into the arrivals over the weekend, let's see if we've got anything I'm not seeing. Last flight was Eastern Airlines last Thursday. So it has been very, very quiet at Biggs Army Airfield. Again, that's one of our points we were watching. And of course, that Eastern Airline flight rolled out of there to Fort Drum, which is a 10th Mountain Division, and that was on Friday. So, again, very quiet on the Fort Biggs side of the house. Ramstein, kind of the pinch point, looks like where everything is kind of being fed into. You'll notice every time we get into the camber flights, that name is always on there. So, again, we're going to look closer at that flight in just a second, just to show you where these guys are heading. Again, down into the Middle East, into actually that one's probably about to actually just took off. Sorry, that one I thought was about to land. It looks like it's taking off, coming out of Poland, and this one coming out of the UK, or actually airborne, 31,000 feet, 573 knots, headed eastbound. All right. Now over here to the actual camber flights, you can see this is the one that left Ramstein. And just to show you where it's headed. Now, this is currently over Turkey. I doubt it's at 38,400 feet at 602 knots. But that's a 747-400. So that could actually be Kalitta Air. That could be Atlas Air. Probably one of those two. Those guys move a lot of troops, and they move a lot of equipment for our DoD. And so given the altitude right there, it does look like he's starting down on a descent, but more than likely he's headed into this region. So anyway, keep an eye on that. Remember, this is Israel right here. He could be heading into Israel, coming out of Ramstein, but we'll watch and see. Watch and wait and see where he ended up. But all right, over here to the UK, same thing. It's just going to be their troop movers for the most part. You do notice we got one rolling out of the US again, and then of course, very active in Europe, as you can see, headed in and out of the region. So, again, looks to be an uptick in terms of stuff moving around. Now, of course, we do have an active NATO exercise, so that could skew our numbers a little bit. But we are still moving a lot of folks, a lot of equipment into that region. So there's no sign whatsoever of anything de-escalating or coming out of there. Seems to be a continuous buildup. So when it goes hot, it's going to be pretty ugly pretty quickly. So, all right, Omni flights. I had one on the board. You can see nothing really showing right now. But it looks like they were moving immigrants this morning. Landed 2 hours, 1 minute ago. Came out of Laredo, Texas to Port-au-Prince. And so that is an immigrant move. So that's probably removing some folks, taking them back out of the country. And again, these guys serve many masters, just like Swift Air. They move primarily, they're moving DoD assets, but you will see them from time to time do some immigrant moves. And so when you get into this airborne command stuff with our military and their use of these charters, it is a well-oiled machine. I will tell you that. They are moving stuff a lot, and it's just you're trying to herd cats when you're looking at it all. Okay. All right. The Ruskies don't have anything on the map except for this flight right here I tracked a little while ago. Actually, I didn't track it. I thought I tracked it, and it's not there. So let me see if I back into it a little bit. Yeah, there it was. That was 2 days ago, though. So they did have one active earlier this morning. And you may remember we were watching this one last week, take off out of that corner there in the Black Sea back to Moscow. But today, right now, I'm not catching anything up. We did have one little bird that was up a minute ago, and I can't, it's no longer there. So SAM missions. Looks like we've got one out here coming out of Stuttgart. For those not familiar with the SAM is actually, that's going to be one of your blue and whites. So it looks like we do have some dignitaries over there in Europe right now coming out of Stuttgart, and we'll continue to watch that and see where he heads. It looks like he's headed north east at the moment, probably into Warsaw or the like. And so don't know who that is, but that is going to be a dignitary, again, blue and white, just like the Russian stuff that we watch with the dignitaries. So all right, now this is actually the Soviet flight that we were looking at, and actually, sorry, I say Soviet flight. It's a Russian flight, but it is a Algerian tied. You guys can see the aircraft here. That is it. Got all that fancy writing there on the side. And coming out of northern Africa, currently en route. Looks like he came out of Moscow, and we've been tracking this dude. And kind of hard to see where he's headed. He's at 40,000 feet, 459 knots, headed westbound. He may be actually returning home. But looks like he's taken this way out, coming across Turkey versus Europe. So anyway, just a data point. Again, don't know who that is, but somebody felt it was important to get into Moscow and have a little chit chat coming out of here. So all right, on over to our immigrant machine. Speaking of that, so you can see very, very active southern border into the states, just into mainly the south side of the U.S. But important to note, remember, these are the guys that were flying a lot of Amazon guys or folks from down south into the warehouses and putting them to work. Key thing here to watch is just the movement within the United States once these things come in and out. Now, again, another company serving two masters. They will do a little bit of everything. So they're not proud, so to say the least. But like this one here, for example, you got this one coming out of Piedmont, headed into Orlando. You know what? I don't know. That could be hockey related. There is just no telling. Now, the stuff coming out like Laredo to El Dorado or headed down into Bogota, Colombia, clearly bringing some folks back. San Antonio headed down south. But then you get this one, San Antonio to Jacksonville, more than likely bringing some folks in for little Amazon work, all right? So again, we just watch it. It's all data points. We definitely need to have eyes on it. I did get some reports that I have not dug into yet, that we had a couple plane loads of kids come inbound to McAllen, all wearing gray shirts, white sneakers, and I've got to dig into it to see where they went. But supposedly it was came in from south of the border, and a couple plane loads of kids is always a little bit of a concern. So anyway, all right, let's get over here real fast. I do want to show you, this is kind of a data point from Zero Hedge. It says, after scrounging for labor during the pandemic, Amazon and Walmart now have too many workers. I kind of find that hard to believe because people can't get people to hire. More than likely, there are too many workers are because they came from south of the border. So the layoffs are going to be a little bit, questionable. They probably are just not using the folks from south of the border. They're sending them back home, we hope. But the data point here really is not the fact that, we know they've been using workers from south of the border. The data point is the reason they're laying folks off is because Amazon and Walmart are running out of stuff to ship. That is all tied back to the ports in Shanghai and the like. And so that's the data point here. Just like when you look at the National Defense Production Act that has been invoked multiple times, the data point that we all need to be focusing on is that our supply chain is hosed. And so the reason they're laying folks off is because their warehouses are starting to get a little light on inventory, and they don't need all the workers because they don't have the inventory levels that they had. And so that should be actually a pre-indicator, and history will tell us as we kind of go back to this that this is probably an indicator right before the storm hit. All right, and so just pay close attention to it. We will watch it as we always do. We may not report on it, but we're watching it. So, okay, let's get over here to Guantanamo Bay just to show you not too much going on. Remember, everything on the calendar was canceled, and but we get over here to arrivals. You can see the board's blank for today. Tuesday, Friday is usually when we'll see these planes come in. Looking for N82ML to be the one that moves when things do come in, and so that'll be a tomorrow flight and then a Friday flight. So again, this is kind of quiet, nothing really going on there today that we see. Now, we do have flights that come inbound and get cleared from the board. And so there is actually one of the Monkey Nation guys that has been following this closely and sends those to me every time he catches them. So he's got kind of eyes on that area. And you can always tell when they're coming in because they all take that same flight path and trajectory around the corner as they kick that corner in, and then they go offline on their final. So, all right, there's that data. Now, speaking of one of these, I just wanted to point out, this is kind of like the gray birds, right? This is the Maxwell Bird. You may remember in 312FU. I'll kind of take a look at it again. Beautiful little paint job, slick little plane, very nice. That's the one that you may remember popped in when Miss Maxwell was arrested. But I just from time to time we go back and look at the birds. I just showed you the 3 gray birds that we watched. We found them coming into Guantanamo Bay at one point, right? Back during the Trump days. And so now they're all offline. Don't want to be tracked, right? So this one is not. We can still watch it and track it. Just want to show you, it came out of Opelika into Lauderdale. Remember, those are 2 watch locations. We suspect these guys are running, black ops out of that. So just fine. All good, because they're hopefully shaking down the bad guys. All right. But just kind of show you where this thing has been. You get it up here into Washington Dulles, into Greenville, and then down to Opelika. Typically, when we see these guys go active, we have usually some type of support function for arrests going on in a region of human trafficking stuff going on. And so anyway, and then it'll pop in and out of the spa from time to time. So again, just something we keep our eyes on, just a data point as always. All right. Okay, listen, that is going to wrap us up for today. Don't forget, folks, on the chat, we have no Q&A today. We'll see you on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we're going to get in on the Q&A side of it, a little bit deeper into the China piece and talk about some of the intel that's out there. And so that's going to be it. Listen, you guys, be safe out there. Keep that powder dry and stay frosty, because things, they are changing. Talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Check out the latest gear and products at monkeyworxus.com.